Hi everybody, I'm Rick the Pilot Teacher, and this video we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of using an iPad in an aircraft. Should you be using it? Should you not be using it? When to use it? When not to use it? If this is something that you're interested in, stick around because I think you'll find this really interesting. So over the last 5-10 years, the use of iPads in the cockpit is becoming more and more popular, and they are an incredible tool providing they're used correctly. Now, for those of you that are student pilots, forget about it. Don't even bring an iPad into your cockpit yet, because as a student, you've got to learn the fundamentals of flying. So basically how to navigate, looking at your chart, dead reckoning, following headings, timings, looking for landmarks, using the fundamentals, because once you've got the fundamentals ingrained into your brain, you will always be able to navigate your aircraft. Without those fundamentals, skipping those, you can end up getting lost real easy, especially if you're relying on something like a digital iPad or a digital GPS, because we all know what happens with technology. It stops working at the worst possible time. So, if you're a student, learn the fundamentals. Learn how to use the charts. Learn dead reckoning. Fly accurate headings. Fly accurate timings. Once you've got those and you're out of flight school, then you can look at using your iPad in the cockpit. It's going to be good to have an iPad whilst you're at flight school, because it's great for all the weight and balance apps, to do your online ground school programs, things like that. But for use in the aircraft, leave it out for now. Once you finish flight school, that's a whole different ball game. But for now, put the iPad in your bag and learn your fundamentals. So I've been using an iPad now for many years. I've used it both IFR and I'm using it currently for VFR, and they work fantastic. But you've always got to be prepared for them to not work. And there's several times when the iPads are a bit of a pain. So this is one of the cons. Be very careful about the temperature the iPad gets to, because when it's too cold, like when I fly out here and it's -30 in the winter, I have to take the iPad out of its cradle, shove it in my shirt and keep it nice and warm, because if it gets too cold, it's not going to work when you want to go flying. The second is when it gets too hot. I'm in the middle of summer right now. I've just been fighting fires. Luckily, fire season's now coming to a close. But you need some kind of sunshade over the front of the aircraft when it's parked, or do like what I've done now, and you turn the aircraft and park it so that the cabin is sitting in the shade, because if it's sitting in the sun, that iPad will cook real quickly. You got to turn it on, it's gonna be like, no, sorry, iPad's too hot, and it shuts down. So it's a real con if all of your coordinates for wherever you've dropped your customers are all in there. You need to go pick them up and your iPad doesn't work, then you're now in the brown zone time. So look after your iPad. If it gets too hot, it's not going to work. If it's going to get too cold, it's not going to work. So keep it at the right temperature if you want it to turn on. The second con, relying on a digital device, i.e. an iPad, when you're navigating, is its battery. In our aircraft, because we're using them fleet-wide, our engineers have actually installed USB plugs in there that are constantly powered the second the aircraft turns on. So it's great. iPad is plugged in right now and it stays plugged in, so it's always at 100%. But what I always do at night is I take my iPad with me out of the aircraft and just put it on charge, just because if it doesn't charge up and you go out in the morning and or your coordinates are in the iPad, then your iPad doesn't work. You kind of look like a bit of an idiot in front of your customers. It's not very professional. So making sure your iPad is always charged. One thing to be aware of if you're using an iPad in the cockpit is use proper Apple cables. We've got some cheaper ones, and I find over time with the vibration, the plugs start to come loose in there, and before you know it, if you're not paying attention to the percentage meter of your battery on your iPad, you may have been flying for hours and it's not been charging, then all of a sudden your iPad shuts off, and again you're back down to the brown zone moment when everything you need is in the iPad and it's now gone flat. So always check it's charging and use good cables. Another backup that I like to have in my flight bag, portable battery bank. I think I got this one from Costco for like, I don't know, 20 bucks, and it's a 12,000 milliamp hour battery pack, and it's awesome. I use it to charge my phone if I've been out on my phone all day and just sitting in the bush, just playing games, reading books, whatever. But it's also good as a backup if your iPad goes flat, because I can put this over on the passenger side. I can, whatever it is there, the shelf, plug the iPad into it, and I can get it charging again. So come with the iPad, look after your battery, always have some kind of backup just in case. So another con for using an iPad in a cockpit is know how to use your apps that are on your iPad. It sounds kind of a bit silly. You'd be surprised how many people go and slap an app on, go to use it, and then they're not quite sure how to use it. And again, if you're in front of the customers, it looks kind of unprofessional. So just spend a bit of time, especially like where I am now. I'm sitting in the bush, I've got 2 hours to wait, hence the reason why it's a perfect chance to make another video, but I've got 2 hours to wait. So go through your app, learn it, learn how to use it, learn how to put in coordinates, learn how to put in different types of coordinates, learn how to set waypoints, learn how to name waypoints. On ours, we use, in the fleet, we use ForeFlight. One of our pilots, he uses the Garmin because he prefers it for VFR. But with ForeFlight, it's quite awkward how the system takes numbers, waypoints, and how it names things. So if you're trying to load in coordinates and they're not quite right, it won't take them. So learn your apps that are on your iPad before you need them, because if not, you can look like a chump in front of your customers. And again, you're supposed to be a professional pilot, not a chump. So the last con that I've got for the iPads is they are a big chunk of something slapped right in the middle of your cockpit, and because of that, you've got to be kind of mindful of where you put them. Most of the iPads that I've used in my career in an aircraft are all iPad minis because they're kind of a perfect size. You get the iPad regular size, and even the Pros, they're too big. Maybe fine in an airliner, but in a small helicopter or a Cessna or a King Air or any smaller aircraft, you're limited on space. So be mindful where you put them. At the moment, this is one of our older helicopters, so we have the iPad on a suction cup mounted on the window, and I mount it in the middle on the left hand side by the passenger so that it leaves my window fully open so that I can see where I'm going. I don't want any blind spots created by the iPad. Some people put them up at the top. I don't like that because I like to be able to see all around. So for this one, it works kind of good just over the way there on the passenger side. So make sure it's not somewhere that's going to block your view. The other thing you've got to be really careful about is how you mount it, because if that falls off and goes down into your pedals at the worst possible time, guess what? An iPad could cause you to wreck your aircraft. So that's something to be very mindful of, especially in winter. Suction cups, when it's -20, -30, are a pain. I've been flying along quite a few times with the suction cup and an iPad, and the iPad's just gone and fallen off. Luckily, it's on the dashboard. I never put a suction cup device right where my pedals are. So mount it properly. If you want to see the iPad mounting system that we use in our fleet, and the one that I love and I personally recommend, check out this video that you can find up here. It's the pivot mounting system. It's fantastic. It's a little bit pricey. It's about 100 odd bucks, but works fantastic. So go watch that video if you want to see how to reliably mount an iPad. But because it's a big device, its con is it can block your view and it can fall into your pedals if you don't secure it properly. So what about the pros? Well, where do I begin? As a tool because that's what it is. It's a tool. It is a fantastic addition to your pilot toolkit. I love having the iPad for use in the cockpit because I can have everything on it. So I can have all my schedule, I can look at the weather, I can look at the airport facility diagrams, I can look at the airport taxi diagrams, I can have all my charts on there, we can have all the company documents, can have the checklists on there, can have the rotorcraft flight manual on there. Anything that you wish to have in an electronic form, you can put on there and have it all in one convenient place, which makes it fantastic because you've now gone from taking all these books and manuals and you can slap it onto the iPad. Now, if your company has also been approved for the electronic flight bag, those paper copies can be left back at the hangar. But until then, they all can be carried in the aircraft. But for ease of use, you can just have it all on the iPad. So it makes everything really, really handy and in one place. The other cool thing that I love about the iPad is its moving map. So like I said before, we use ForeFlight, and ForeFlight for both IFR and VFR is fantastic. It's if you're not familiar with ForeFlight, go and check it out. It's now been bought out by Boeing, and it's just they're coming out with new features on it all the time, and it's fantastic. And it's basically a moving map that puts your aircraft on it, and all the charts that you have, the digital charts, are laid on there and they move. I've just been using it on the fire. It's been fantastic because each day the fire perimeter is mapped. They put out a digital version of it and we can slap it on the iPad and it overlays the fire perimeter onto the actual aviation chart. So it's fantastic. As you're flying around, we're going into certain helipads or certain drop-off areas, and everybody's flying around with it using the same thing. Everybody knows where you are when you're calling up, I'm coming off pad 6 in Alpha Division or whatever. Everybody's on the same thing. Because it's digital and it moves, you always know where you are. See, the iPads allow you to really increase your situational awareness, which when you're working in tight confines with a lot of other aircraft, like a fire or like within a city, somewhere like that, it really helps give you that broader picture of where everybody is. The other thing that I like about the iPads, especially if you are in cell phone service, you can get the iPad with the cell coverage, and then you can get real-time weather on there. If you don't have cell service, you can buy Bluetooth accessories that link to your iPad that give you ADS-B traffic on your iPad. It gives you weather on your iPad. You can also get a Sirius XM radio subscription, so you can listen to tunes whilst you're doing long cross countries. You know, it's fantastic. It's a very handy tool to have, and as the years go by, there's more and more things coming out that make the iPad an even more powerful tool. But because it's a tool, you've got to use it correctly. The main thing that I love about it is its ease of use for increasing my situational awareness 100-fold. That moving map allows me to just fly around. I can put in wherever I want to go, hit direct to, off we go. And it's great. I've been using like aviation GPSs, like the Garmin GPSs, for years, but having it on the iPad with all my documents, with all my coordinate converter apps for when I'm flying with different fire agencies, just lots of different apps, I can put everything in the one place and it's all right there, and it is just a fantastic tool. So if you want to use an iPad, wait till you're out of flight school, learn your fundamentals first, but then go get yourself an iPad mini. The minis are perfect. They're not too big for the cockpit, but they're big enough that allows the screen to be of a good size. And then you can check out a link below. I've got 2 minutes affiliate link, so if you purchase through that link, I do get a small no cost to you commission, and it really just helps this channel. And there's also links to the accessories in there, like the ADS-B receivers and the other Sirius XM receivers, things like that, that can make your iPad even more powerful. And a powerful tool in the cockpit allows you to be a better pilot because it allows less mental saturation of your brain, so you've now got more mental capacity to deal with things going on around you. But flight school first, learn your fundamentals, then when you're finished, go get yourself an iPad. It is a fantastic tool, but use it correctly, or trust me, it will bite you in the butt when you go to turn it on and it doesn't work. So always have a backup. I have my charts, they're sitting in the seat right there between the two seats, so if anything happens to my iPad, I've also got, let's give you a bit of a quick tour. We've got our iPad there. We've also got a backup old Garmin GPS there, which is handy. And then down in the side here, we've got the charts for where I'm currently flying. So everything's easy to hand, so that if anything happens with my iPad or the GPS, I can just land, get the charts out, and plot my position from there. So yeah, that is a setup. So quick tip for new pilots, old pilots, ones that have not heard this, but I'm sure you've seen my other videos. You know I love to use the dry erase markers. If you're flying crews out in the bush and they're in different groups and you're dropping them off in different locations, one of the things that I like to do to ensure I increase the level of safety is that I always like to write down where I've dropped them and what time they want picking up. That way, if ever I have a brain fart in the aircraft when I'm sitting here and I can't remember if I'm picking them up at 2, 3, 1, or am I picking them up at location W1 or W4, W14, by writing it on my window when I drop them off, I know exactly where they are. The other cool thing that I do is, let's come over to my iPad. You see how many waypoints we've got here? Look at how many there are. This is where we've been working the last few days. So now, whenever I drop them off, I always put a pin. So this is exactly where I drop them off. That way then I can come in, and as you can see, they're at W1. So one crew is at W1, I'm picking them up at 12:45. So that way I never forget where my crews are. The other thing that I like about this is if I was ever involved in an incident whilst my crews were out on the ground, emergency services, rescue services will find my aircraft, and hopefully they'll be able to see on my window where the two crews are that I've dropped off. It increases safety, and it's a little trick that I've been using for years, but it also makes the customers feel a lot more safer. So dry erase marker, use it for loads of stuff, but write down where you drop your crews off. As you get older, you forget stuff. This way you don't forget it. So if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. If you got any comments about how you use an iPad, whether you think they're a good idea in the cockpit, bad idea in the cockpit, stick them in the comments below. I love talking with you guys. And yes or no, iPads are here to stay. Use them correctly, use them at the right point in your career, and they will allow you to fly with so much less stress and give you so much more situational awareness. So I personally love iPads. Hope you do too. I'll see you on the next one.